Welcome and thank you for tuning into A Sound Constitution on CHLY 101.7 FM with Cassandra, Harris, Karla, Kelly, Max, and Samantha. We're third-year BSN students at Vancouver Island University in Nanaimo. We're working to demystify healthcare issues affecting our community, bringing you evidence-based information about our healthcare. This information is for education purposes only and does not replace the advice of your primary healthcare provider.
We would like to start our show by acknowledging that we are on the unceded territory of the Nanaimo people, with a broadcasting range that overlaps the Guerin and the CHLY territories. This acknowledgement is done with gratitude to the Nanaimo people and with the intention to increase awareness about truth and reconciliation processes and efforts on Vancouver Island. Additional information and resources surrounding Nanaimo history, reconciliation, protocol, and land acknowledgement can be found on our Facebook and YouTube pages.
Hello, and welcome to Episode 2 of A Sound Constitution on CHLY 101.7 FM. Before I begin our show, I would like to say thank you to the Nanaimo people, whose traditional territories of the Guerin and CHLY we broadcast over. My name is Karla, and I'm happy to be your host for today, along with
Samantha, also a VIU third-year nursing student who is super excited to be here with you all today.
Today we are checking in with first responders in our community and sharing some of their experiences working in the COVID-19 pandemic. We will touch briefly on how they maintain their resiliency and debrief after stressful situations. We have 2 interviews for you. In the first half of the show, we will hear from Matt Potter, who is a VIU BSN nursing student and a paramedic working in Nanaimo. And in the second half, we will hear from Brian Moet, who is a recently retired firefighter who also worked in Nanaimo for 29 years. Let's get started. I'm here today with Matt Potter, and he is a 4th-year BSN student for registered nursing at VIU. And what's unique about Matt is that he's also now working as a paramedic in the Nanaimo region. And we reached out to him just to see how he's doing with COVID-19 and see if there's anything that he could tell us about his resiliency, his adaptability, and so on. How has it been working as a paramedic in Nanaimo over the last year, especially with COVID-19?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. It's really changed a lot. In the beginning, so almost exactly a year ago now, there was a lot of anxiety around COVID-19. Nobody really knew what it was or what to expect. And just trying to navigate that, I think, was one of the most stressful things because it seemed like there were always new symptoms that were being discovered and nobody really knew how quickly the transmission was going to occur. It was popping up in different countries all over the place quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And they were still sort of discovering a lot about the virus in terms of how it was transmitted and what the safe distance was, and nobody really knew how effective masks were, and there was a lot of confusion around what types of masks were okay and not okay.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of my work, it was very strange. In the very beginning, there were practically no ambulance calls, and a lot of the emergency departments were actually very empty, at least in Nanaimo, because people were isolating at home and people were just not going out. And I remember it was really eerie, and it had this feeling of being like the calm before the storm. Everybody was really anxious that we were going to suddenly get this massive influx of people, which actually never occurred. It just kind of was a slow progression back to how it had been before, which was quite a relief for us. But there was definitely a lot of stress in terms of just constantly being bombarded with new information and new protocols and new policies that were coming up. Like every day it was changing. So trying to just keep on top of that was a lot of work in itself.
So you mentioned that it was very quiet. So would you say still, has there been an overall increase or decrease in the number of calls requesting ambulance service? Are you still seeing that drop in the request for your help?
No, I think now it's pretty much returned to normal, to how it was I guess, pre-COVID, although that seems like so long ago, it's a little hard to remember.
Yeah.
But I think it's pretty much what you would expect it to be for the population and the demographic that we have.
Yeah. So you mentioned that there was a lot of new information coming in, and there was a lot of uncertainty about safe distances and whether or not to wear a mask and what type of mask you should be wearing. From today, looking back, how has your practice overall changed to address any COVID-19 concerns?
It's changed quite a lot, actually. So our dispatch service has a screening tool that they use before we even arrive at the scene to determine if there's any risk for us. When we initially arrive on scene, we always ask from a safe distance before approaching the scene if there's any concerns, if anybody's sick or if anybody's been exposed or traveled, any of that. We have a set of screening questions that we ask everybody. And then once that's done and we determine it's safe, then we go in, and we're always on the watch to see if there is anything that we've missed, because sometimes suddenly somebody will come running up and be like, oh, this person's cousin that they saw yesterday just tested positive, and we missed that information somehow, or they didn't tell us. So we be as careful as we can, but it's never quite 100%, which does cause a little bit of stress. But we always wear our masks and we always wear gloves, and if there's any concern, we'll put on full PPE with gowns and booties and hairnets and everything. So that's the sort of those two ways, the screening before we go in and then physical barriers. And another way that we have adapted our practice is if there is any reason to be concerned at all or suspect that anybody might have any symptoms or anything like that, only one of us will go into the actual residence. So the other person, the driver, will stay outside at a safe distance, and they'll pass us anything that we need, and they'll do all of our communication and stuff like that. We don't bring much equipment into the scene anymore at all. We used to have a whole jump kit. What a lot of us do now is we just put the bare minimum in a plastic bag, and we'll bring that in with us. And then the person who waits outside will bring us anything additionally that we need, and that'll all go in the contaminated bag and get cleaned after the call. So there must be a significant increase in the amount of time it takes for you to prepare for shift. Make sure you have all of your individual disposable supplies ready, and then after each call, you have to spend extra time cleaning everything that has been in contact with your patients. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And if we do have somebody that we suspect is COVID positive, we have all of these screens, plastic sheets that we tape all over the entire ambulance and cover all of the surfaces of it. And then that's like a precaution on top of wiping everything down afterwards. But that can take sometimes upwards of a half hour to 45 minutes to do the cleaning after, and then the prep beforehand will sometimes take 10 or 15 minutes, which when you're dealing with a acute call can be difficult to navigate, because again, usually it'll be one of us in with the patient doing whatever sort of time sensitive treatments are required, while the other person will be setting that up on their own. Yeah. We also have our own set of PPE that we wear, these silicone respirators that were issued to us because of some of the shortages that were happening with the N95 masks. Would they look a lot like a painter's mask? Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Very similar. And they have filters on them that need to be changed every so often. So those need to be inspected and cleaned at the beginning of our shift. And then we make sure that the ambulances are all well stocked with whatever PPE we need for the day. And then wipe all the ambulances down at the beginning of the shift. So it does take probably an extra 15 or 20 minutes at the beginning of the shift. And then we wipe everything down at the end as well, even though the people who are coming on will also wipe it down when they start. So it gets cleaned twice, but it's just what we've determined is the best practice. So at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a lot of media attention around mask shortages and not having enough PPE. Have you experienced any shortages in personal protective equipment that you've had to creatively solve as a paramedic, or has it all been there for you? In the beginning, we did run out of, or there was concern that we would run out of N95s. So we got tested for another brand of N95 before we got the silicone respirators issued to us.
Do you also wear goggles with that?
We have these plastic face shields that they go around the forehead and then cover your whole face.
Oh, okay. So that's quite a barrier when you first come to a home. It's stressful enough for people to have an ambulance attendant come to their home, but now they have someone who's got a mask on and a face shield and possibly is gowned. It must be quite stressful for them.
It has been really quite difficult, especially with people who are a little bit cognitively impaired or altered if they're under the influence or something, or especially some of the seniors who might be struggling with the same thing, like an altered level of consciousness, be it to illness and some kind of infection, or just a little bit of Alzheimer's or things like that. And especially if they're really hard of hearing, it can be really hard to communicate because with the respirators, they really muffle your voice a lot. And you can only imagine how scary it is for somebody who's already in a vulnerable situation and they're confused. And then suddenly you have these people, like, we look like aliens probably with these visors and these masks just like yelling down at them. So it's been quite challenging.
Have you yourself received the COVID-19 vaccine?
I have not yet. There was a sign-up sheet to sign up to get it. And then because due to the shortage of the vaccine, the priority has now switched to the people who got the first dose getting their second dose. So they're not accepting initial doses at the moment. So once the people who have received their first dose get their second dose, I'm hopeful that I'll be able to sign up to get my first dose fairly soon.
Yeah. I look forward to that for you. That will give you a lot more confidence in your day-to-day.
Yeah, and it'll be a bit of a relief as well, just to not have to worry and to have that maybe a little bit of added security. Yeah.
As a paramedic, how do you encourage people who are hesitant to take the vaccine? Have you had any thought-provoking discussions around that?
Well, I try and just remind myself that everybody has the right and freedom to refuse it if that's their choice. But I always try and explore with people why they don't want to get it. If they're really informed about it and about the risks, and if they seem like there's misinformation or that they're not understanding something about it, then I'll try and explore that with them and encourage them to seek out some more reliable information. But if people are really well informed about it and know what they're talking about and are familiar with the science and the research behind the vaccines and have an argument against getting it that seems logical and well informed, and they're just making an informed choice to not get it, then that's their right and their freedom to do that.
So is it a requirement of your job as a paramedic then to take the vaccine?
It's being strongly encouraged at this point. I think they're still exploring whether they can actually make it a requirement, because at this point I don't think they can force us to get it, because it is a right and a freedom of people to refuse to get it if they object to it. So at this point it's just being very encouraged to get it.
What are some resources or personal practices that you find helpful to improve your resiliency and take care of your mental health?
I think it's challenging. I'm in the same boat as everybody in that a lot of what I used to do for that has changed and I'm not able to anymore. I used to go to like the climbing gym and stuff like that, unwind, which I can't do now. But I find being active really helps. So I've started working out at home a lot more. And I still try and get out for walks outside when I can. And I find that really helps, just kind of taking an hour or so to not think about work or school and just focus on the moment. I find that really helps.
Yeah. Have you started any COVID-19 renovations?
No, we haven't. We did move, so having to redecorate and all of that was, that kept us fairly busy.
I've been slowly painting every room in my house. It keeps me occupied and it changes my scenery, right? And
that's a good idea.
Yeah, it works well for me. Have you started any hobbies with the COVID-19 shutdown and the stress?
No, mostly just because of school, keeping me too busy to really commit to that. I keep thinking I should unpack my guitar and start that again, but maybe after this semester I'll make that a goal.
Nice. So, on to my next question. We see the daily numbers of infectious cases going down, and the economy is restarting, and people wanting to resume their normal freedom to live and work. Yet we have a new challenge of controlling the spread of potentially highly contagious COVID variants. Do you, as a healthcare worker, feel that we should be easing social distancing right now?
That's a difficult question to answer. I think we really need to be aware of how much people are struggling with the restrictions right now. We're seeing huge spikes in the number of fatal overdoses. That we've had the highest record yet in the last few months with that. And there's been a huge spike in the cases of mental health related problems because people don't have the same supports that they used to have. And I think a lot of people are just really struggling with a lot of things related to the social distancing and not having the same amount of support. And for people in those situations, I think it is important that we try and get back to some form of normalcy, I guess, for want of a better word, or just make sure that they have the supports that they need. And maybe it is a matter of adapting certain things so that they can be safer than they were and fit with some of the COVID-19 policies as best as they can. But then that also has to be balanced with not having a spike in the cases and the COVID-19 numbers, right? So I think it's a really tricky balance to find. And I'm not really sure how to go about that.
Yeah.
I'll leave that up to people who are a lot smarter than myself. But I mean, I know there's strong feelings at both ends, right? There's people who are very hesitant to open things up too soon and then have a third wave, which is happening in some other countries, or see these rapid spikes in case numbers. But then there's also people who are really struggling right now who really need more support than what they're getting. So I think maybe something to do would be to look at the demographics and look at the people who are really struggling and find ways that we can give them the support that they need first and then make them kind of a priority for the transition back to opening things up.
Yeah, those are all very, very good points. When I hear a lot of the news media talking about the new variants, it can be very fearful, especially when they're saying that it's much more infectious or that it's less responsive to the vaccine. And I have to remind myself that we still do the same things. It's not as though we have to learn a whole new ball game. It doesn't matter if the variants from, South Africa or Britain or Canada. It's all about washing your hands, doing your social, your 6 feet distancing, and wearing your mask, and just to be very diligent in reducing your bubble and staying within that. So I'm hopeful that we can continue to see some growth and adaptation as we keep services open, because I know it's been incredibly hard on people to go through the shutdown, especially for seniors and especially for people with mental health issues or who are experiencing substance use issues. It's really challenging for them to access those resources. So yeah, I think that we're stronger now too, as a society to deal with this. We sort of have some experience for the last year under our wing, and I think we're doing much better in just conforming to the rules and encouraging everyone to wear masks. So,
yeah, and I think we have, like you say, we have a better handle now on what to do in terms of hand washing and wearing masks, and we sort of know what the precautions are, whereas in the beginning we're still learning, right? And now we've had a year of this to understand it, so I think that's helped a lot.
Thank you very much for your time, and congratulations on your upcoming graduation from the VIU BSN program. Do you have any, you're welcome, do you have any words of encouragement for other nursing students who are listening right now?
Well, I know it's extremely difficult for a lot of people who are earlier in the program who are trying to navigate nursing school or any other university programs with them being online. So all I can say is just keep doing your best, and you will get through it eventually.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Definitely. Yeah.
And it's not a train, right? Well, wonderful. Thank you very much, Matt, for coming on to A Sound Constitution today. I hope that your future is bright and that you enjoy graduating and you find a great job.
Thank you very much. It's been really nice chatting with you.
You've been listening to an interview with Matt Potter, a fourth-year VIU BSN student who also works as a paramedic in the Nanaimo area. He was sharing with us his unique experience being a frontline responder during the COVID-19 pandemic. I wish him the best of luck as he completes his degree in nursing this year. My talk with Matt reminded me that we are truly experiencing two health crises right now. Not only do we have the pandemic, we also have an ongoing opioid crisis that continues to claim more lives than the virus. Just today, I opened my Parksville-Qualicum Beach newspaper, dated February 24, 2021, to read a story of deadly fentanyl concerns on page 3, written by Mandy Morris. In it, a mom speaks out about the death of her son, who was only 33. He passed away tragically in December of last year, just days before Christmas, when he was alone in his supportive housing residence in Parksville. The coroner confirmed that he died from a toxic level of fentanyl laced with methamphetamine and heroin, causing respiratory depression. The story details how this young man was living with schizoaffective disorder and had a history of substance use for which he wanted to receive treatment. The problem was a long wait list for treatment at the local lodge where he was set to go. His mother, concerned that another person like her son may die, is urging the government to shorten the wait list for people who actively seek treatment. What struck me about this story was the picture of mother and son, where both are smiling at the camera. His face is bright and joyful, with a sense of fun and humor in his eyes, and he appears taller than his mum as she leans in to hug his shoulder. He looks happy, young, in good health, and he should have a full life ahead of him. His face to me represents one of the many beautiful faces we are losing every day to the fentanyl crisis. According to the BC Coroner's report, men aged 30 to 39 suffer the most deaths. Since 2012, Nanaimo has lost 195 souls, BC 1,288. My heart goes out to the residents and staff where this young man lived, and I thank his mother for bravely sharing her son's story with the newspaper. My deepest condolences for your loss. I want to take this moment to highlight this crisis and say thank you to our essential workers, our paramedics, nurses, firefighters, doctors, mental health workers, and police who are still grappling with this increasing emergency. We are struggling with an epidemic of fentanyl deaths compounded by a COVID pandemic. There is something that we can all do. Naloxone is a medication that can quickly reverse the effects of an overdose from opioids such as heroin, morphine, fentanyl, carfentanil, and codeine. The BC government provides free naloxone kits and online training in their Towards the Heart program. I urge you, if you are listening, to consider requesting a free naloxone kit from your pharmacist or call 811 to request more information about the program. These kits save lives. If you witness an overdose, call 911 immediately. The Drug Overdose Act provides some legal protection for individuals who seek emergency help during an overdose. Also, if you or a loved one you know is in need of support dealing with substance use or mental health crises, please consider reaching out to the Vancouver Island Crisis Line at 1-888-494-3888. Their phone line is open 24/7 with crisis chat and crisis text services available nightly from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. You've been listening to CHLY 101.7 FM, A Sound Constitution. Up next, a song for the heart. This is Everlast with What It's Like.
Said he was in love. Said don't worry about a thing, baby doll, I'm the man you've been dreaming of. But 3 months later he said he won't date or return her call. And she swept find that man cutting off his back. And then she heads for the clinic and she gets some static walking through the door. They call her a killer and they call her a sinner and they call her a you ever had to walk a mile in a shoe? 'Cause then you really might know what it's like to have to choose. Then you really might know what it's like. 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 Sin, I seen a tough man cry. I seen a loser win and a sad man grin. I heard an honest man lie. I seen the good side of bad and the downside of up and everything between. I lit the silver spoon, drank from the golden cup and smoked the finest. Baddest dimes these a couple of times before I broke their heart. You know where it ends, yo, it usually depends on where you start. Out on the corner with you. He like to hang out late, he like to get in the face to keep the pace with thugs. Until late one night there was a big gunfight and Max lost his head. He pulled out his chrome 45 Tucson and wound up dead. Now his wife and his kids are caught in the midst of all of his pain. You know it comes that way, at least that's what they say when you play the game. You ever had to wake up to hear the news? Then you really might know what it's like to have to lose. Then you really might know what it's like. Then you really might know what it's like. Then you really might know what it's like to have
Hello and welcome to the Truth and Myths part of our show, where we look at some common assumptions in the society and explain them in detail. If you're interested in finding out where we got our resources from, please check out our Facebook page at A Sound Constitution on CHLY 101.7 FM. True or false? Study finds that it's better for your health to breathe through your nose than it is to breathe through your mouth. I'll give everyone tuning in 5 seconds to think about that statement. This is true. Breathing through your nose helps to warm the air traveling to your lungs. Your lungs do not like to be cold. Another important lesson to breathe through your nose is to help filter the air. All the little hairs in your nose act as a filtration system and are one of the first lines of defenses from contacting those pesky bugs and viruses. True or false? Sea salt is a natural mineral and is a healthier alternative to table salt. I'll give everyone tuning in 5 seconds to think about that statement. So this is false. Sea salt contains close to the same amount of sodium as table salt. Too much sodium in your diet can increase the risk of high blood pressure, heart disease, and stroke. To help maintain a low sodium diet and still keep that zest in your food, you can drizzle some orange or lemon juice, fresh garlic, herbs, or spices. True or false? The only way to receive full or partial coverage on prescription medications or medical supplies is if you pay for separate medical insurance benefits. I'll give everyone tuning in 5 seconds to think about that statement. So that statement is actually false. According to Pharmacare for BC residents in the province of British Columbia, residents are eligible for a governmental benefit called Pharmacare. For most of the Pharmacare plans, residents are requiring to be enrolled in the Medical Service Plan, which is also known as the MSP. But for some plans, you don't have to be enrolled. This benefit helps BC residents cover large portions of their healthcare costs. More information can be found on the BC Health Services website under Pharmacare.
Welcome back to our show. You are listening to CHLY 101.7 FM, A Sound Constitution. Thank you all for tuning in today. You are back with Samantha. So for the second portion of the show today, we are going to be interviewing Brian Moet. He is a recently retired Nanaimo area firefighter. He has been an integral part of our community with his work as a first responder for 29 long years. So I chose to interview him for his extensive experience as a firefighter, as well as Brian being a great asset within our community. Our first responders are responsible for so much, and they put in a lot of work to keep our communities out of harm's way. Brian and his fellow firefighters, along with all other first responders, work tirelessly for our community, while often taking a physical and mental toll on themselves and their loved ones. Yet Brian approaches everyone he meets with kindness and open arms. Without further ado, I give you Brian Moet. Thank you for joining us today on A Sound Constitution, Brian. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am now a retired captain from Nanaimo Fire Rescue. I spent 29 years and 2 months in professional firefighting career, and I had 6.5 years of volunteer time in the community of working in Harewood and also in Cedar.
Wow, that's a lot. In your role as a firefighter, can you walk us through what a day in the life of a firefighter looks like?
Our day starts, we did a 10-hour day and a 14-hour night shift. Typically, the guys started their shift, it goes from 8 till 6 and 6 till 8. But typically, the guys come in about 7:30 in the morning, get their gear ready, converse with the off-going crew, either day or night, and then they would prepare themselves, have their gear ready, have everything set up to take the first call out from the hall.
Those are really long days, hey.
They are long days.
Fire calls are not the only emergencies firefighters respond to. So on that note, what types of emergency situations that you and your team actually respond to?
In my career, when I started, we actually did a lot more fires than medical aids or public assistance calls. But through education, we've pretty much put ourselves out of job as being a firefighter, and now we've become more of a first responder or a rescue unit type career. Through education, we volunteer time in the school system, and we taught grade 3s about fire safety with a hand-built trailer the firemen built prior to my starting, and it had 2 bedrooms in it, and taught the young kids how to get in and out of a bedroom safety, about safe fire practices, smoke detectors, and such. Now, through that education, we have actually limited our true structure fire calls to less than a third in my career time, but we've picked up a lot more medical aid calls, first responders. We do cardiac arrests. The opioid has really pushed the boundaries for us for working conditions and dealing with the public that way. We also do a lot of public service, volunteer. A lot of the guys do a lot of work on the side, do a kettle drive for the Salvation Army, and get involved with schools, stuff like that. Some of the guys teach sports as captain or as coaches, and volunteer on local teams to support the community on their own days off.
You guys actually do quite a lot more than fires in that sense. But putting that extra time into education on fires, you guys have decreased your calls for fires. That's quite interesting to hear.
Absolutely. The last few years of my career, we actually put on a smoke detector drive where we went to the lower community people that we would go door to door and knock, voluntarily ask if they'd like us to go through their home, show them some home safety tips. We had pamphlets, and we would supply either a battery for their smoke detector or even install a brand new smoke detector if they're 10 years or older.
Is there something the general public could do in order to make your job or response to an emergency call a little easier for you guys?
One of the biggest things I noticed throughout my career was addresses. And that was a pet peeve for me is you've called us for an emergency because you need us and we can't find your place. I would ask you to clear your brush away from your house, have contrasting numbers, have a black number on a white house, a white number on a black house, whatever it may be. When they are similar, like a brass number on a beige house, you can't see them. Even if your house is set back, put another address numbers on the front of your driveway where they're more easily found. You'll find through the Nanaimo community, a lot of streets sound the same, a lot of streets don't go through, even though they're the same name, but addresses are paramount for us to get there. And if we can't find your address or it's fallen down or something like that, minutes can be hours for us trying to get there. We can't find it.
It makes a lot of sense, and that's something I feel like a lot of people would not think about when they are moving or in their homes, to make sure that things are seen and it's not just for your pizza delivery guy, it's for actual emergencies.
That's right. Go out and stand in your driveway when it's dark and tell me what you see. If you can't see your numbers, you can't see the front door, that it's blocked by cars or obstructed by brush or something like that, clear that away, because typically we go and we're there to help people when they're in their dire need. And if another minute or two could make a difference.
That definitely makes sense. Yeah, just a couple of minutes could change a call from being a positive one to
Absolutely.
not so much.
And with the new day and age, you can put LED lights, solar lights out with addresses on them, stuff like that. They're not that expensive, and they're a big push for the first responders. Not just fire, there's police, fire, ambulance, and even your pizza delivery. You want your pizza hot, have it show up hot.
Yeah, I guess that's fair enough. So, as a firefighter, you have likely seen many traumatic situations. How do you and your colleagues debrief about these situations, and what supports are provided to you and your crew?
In my career, we just talked and said, okay, we just talked over. Now there's a big push for PTSD, traumatic counseling. We debrief as crews, and if it's a traumatic incident, we'll actually take the crews off shift and bring guys in to replace them, and have the crews talk with a specialized counselor or bring somebody in to debrief them and have them walk through the process to de-escalate what's going on in their heads.
And you think that you guys have enough supports that are provided now?
There's always be more, but the support is ongoing and it's getting better. It's recognized now internationally through the IAFF, the National Firefighters Association, the communities, management, city council recognizes with fire, police, and ambulance. We typically see people at their worst, and it haunts you after a while. That sometimes for some people their cup is full. So we can go and get the debriefing, get the proper counseling, de-escalate what's going on, and it could be their home life adding to it, their business life, the job they're in, stuff like that. It all adds up. And then you top it off, like the cherry on the cake is dealing with children mostly, will probably set most of us off.
It makes sense. You guys are people too, and I think that's something a lot of people forget. First responders also have their own lives as well, and it can be really, really heavy being in those jobs. On a more positive note, what is the most rewarding part of your job?
I think the most rewarding part of the job was dealing with the public and trying to educate them in what we really do and what we see. I've had people come out and say, "Oh, you applied for your job." You're right, but I didn't apply to see what I've seen and stuff like that. But the rewarding part is dealing with the kids, volunteering through the schools, through education and stuff like that. The guys involved with coaching, it's payback. And with the first responder, you'll find a lot of these guys very, very involved with the community, where you find people that do other jobs not so much. And it's an honor to have a good career and have the time to be able to pay back to the community.
That's wonderful to hear, honestly. So the community being a big part of your job is something that makes it so rewarding, and being able to give back.
Absolutely.
I love that. Is there anything else you would like to share with our audience today?
I'd ask people to drive and slow down this time of year. Be aware of your surroundings. Give that extra couple of seconds going through intersections. At home, check your smoke detectors. We made a fun of it. My girls, when they're little, they go and do sleepovers, and I'd send them pops, chips, and the smoke detector, because some of the families that my girls were friends with were lower income or single families, fathers or moms, and they didn't keep up on a lot of stuff. So I felt it was my way to pay it forward, just make sure they had a working smoke detector and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And everything else.
Definitely. So, putting in the extra for your community.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Involved with some of the meal programs at school. If they're doing kids doing a lunch program, we often would donate a little more snacks and stuff like that because I could afford it. And that's my way of paying it back. Or spend time with the kids at the arena tying skates, or going to the pool and shuffling kids back and forth. Because had the opportunity to do that with my work schedule.
Thank you so much, Brian, for everything you do for our community and all the great work that you have put in. I want to say thank you for joining us today at Sound Constitution at 101.7 CHLY FM. Thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you, Rita.
We're going to listen now to a clip from a TED Talk given in 2018 by Anthony Guerin, a former EMT and current practicing paramedic in New York City, who is also the Simulation Center Technologist for the Adelphi University College of Nursing and Public Health. He has a very insightful take on PTSD and stress in first responders, as well as our culture's reaction to it. Let's have a listen.
Suck it up. Get over it. That's what we were always told. We were never allowed to have emotion. As she mentioned, I am a paramedic, have been for 24 years. I joined the volunteer fire department when I was 19 years old. I'm not doing that math for you. But for my entire adult life, I've been doing this. I've been watching and seeing people in their worst. Suck it up, get over it. You have to get back out there. Man up is what we keep being told. Well, I'm here to tell you that I have post-traumatic stress disorder. For a while, that was something I hid. I was afraid of. I didn't want anybody to know about. But I embraced it finally. And it took a few things. So my story is what I'm here to tell you today. What I'm here to tell you is suck it up and get over it doesn't work. In fact, it makes it a lot worse. A lot worse. See, some of the problems that we have, post-traumatic stress disorders, become out in the forefront. The military, our returning veterans, have really brought it out and made it more prevalent in society. People are able to talk about it. If our heroes, if the people who were the strongest and the bravest of this country could suffer from this debilitating disease, and yes, it is a debilitating disease, you'll hear about that in a moment. If they can do it, then what about the average paramedic? Now, I'm not about to sit up here and tell you that I have experienced anything like combat whatsoever. However, the trauma on a day-to-day basis, the tragedy on a day-to-day basis. So EMS has always been the little brother of the police department and the fire department. We've never had the respect or any kind of the rights that all the other ones have gotten. They don't even get our title right. Anytime you hear anybody say police officers, firefighters, and emergency workers, can you get my title right? No, or the dreaded, even worse, ambulance driver. That one I love. Yes, I drive an ambulance now and again, but it doesn't define who I am and what my education shows. It doesn't define it. So when I think ambulance driver, I still think that the public still thinks to this day that we all have white coats, white pants, we drive souped up Cadillac ambulances, we run as fast as we can, we scoop up the patient, we bring him to the hospital. That's not the way it is. Besides, can you see me in white pants? That right off the bat would make me define another career. But I never got into this for accolades. I didn't get into this to be on the level of the police officer, to be on the level of the firefighter. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I wanted to make a difference in people's lives. I wanted to go to work every single day and save a life. Now, no, you don't save a life every single day, but you can make a difference every single day. But along with that difference, along with that wonder, along with the good jobs, comes a lot of the bad ones. And I'm also here to tell you that it isn't the big things that make us worse. The 9/11s, the Oklahoma City bombings, the Parkland shootings, those are terrible incidents, tragic, absolutely tragic, and will devastate a practitioner, devastate a provider, devastate police officer, firefighter, anybody who's involved. But it's the little things, the day-to-day stuff. Every single day going to work, the infant, the 2-month-old in cardiac arrest that you know you can't fix. You know your efforts are futile, but you're trying like hell anyway. The 80-year-old, the man who was married for 60 years and he was in cardiac arrest, that you're on the floor trying to resuscitate him, and you look up and you see his wedding picture from 60 years ago. And then you look his spouse in the face, knowing that her world is about to crumble. It's the little things, the gunshots, the stabbings, the mangled vehicles, the constant tragedy every single day. We see people at their worst. And probably one of the worst parts about our lives and our profession is our successes are hidden. Our failures are very public. So I have a good friend of mine who would tell you, suck it up, get over it. You knew what you signed up for. This was you. Nobody told you to do this, put a gun to your head to do this job. Suck it up. Stop playing the victim. Because people rely on you. People need you. They need you to be you. Not drop into the fetal position and suck your thumb every single time the radio goes off. Well, I will tell you, there are not many things in this world that I am good at, but I am damn good at this job. And no matter how bad I've gotten, no matter how dark my life has ever gotten, I've gotten up when that radio went off, and you will get my best. And as a matter of fact, I've gotten better. I've gotten more compassionate. I've become a better provider. Suck it up doesn't work. If you are in this field, if you know somebody, keep an eye on things. Make a phone call. Send a text message. Just check in. Sometimes the littlest things can make the biggest of difference. That's all I'm asking for. I won't give up. I won't stop. My wife knows that in the middle of the night, at 3 o'clock in the morning, my phone rings. It's somebody that needs to talk or somebody that needs me. I will get in my car and drive wherever I have to go. I will not let people be alone. I will not let them be the way I was. I won't do it. So all I'm asking is you do the same. Suck it up doesn't work. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for listening.
That was former EMT and paramedic Anthony Guerin, currently the Simulation Center technologist at the Adelphi University College of Nursing and Public Health, speaking about PTSD and trauma among first responders at a TED Talk in 2018.
What a great episode on first responders, Karla and Samantha. Thank you. And thank you, CHLY listeners. This is Cassandra here, just finishing this episode off with a list of 5 ways to support the first responder and loved ones in your life. And bubble, I guess, these days. Hey. So here's some ideas to support the first responders in your life, brought to you by the BC Emergency Health Services website. The first one, I think, is really the basis of everything, is what you can do for yourself is actually to learn about what critical incident stress is and what trauma looks like. This can help to begin for you to understand what a person's working through after a traumatic event that may have happened on the job. Number 2 is to encourage the individual to speak up about their experiences and their feelings. Try not to expect this or be overly demanding. They may have a really hard time talking about this or feel as though they're putting too much on you and not want to have that feeling. They may feel that what they're wanting to talk about may traumatize you as well. So try to instill an environment and challenge that belief and express your willingness to listen and be there for them. Third, check in with your first responders. Every now and then, call them up if you don't see them every day. Ask how they're doing, like how they're really doing. If people are wanting to talk, they will. And knowing you're interested in how they're genuinely doing will send them a message that a listening ear is available. The fourth one is try not to be afraid of deep emotion. Many of us have not experienced profound grief or anguish that these first responders see on a daily basis. Seeing someone cry uncontrollably can be somewhat distressing. Individuals experiencing traumatizing events need to have a safe place to vent their emotions. Be there to listen. Let them vent, talk, yell, cry, whatever that looks like for them. Then maybe suggest a walk or some sort of activity to help further reduce their stress levels. We need to be there for them. The 5th tip I have for you all today is to finally express to your first responder that it's okay for them to feel that the way they do. Validate that there's been a tragedy or a hardship that they're working through, and it's normal to feel pain and confusion or any emotion that comes up. Reassure them that you're there and it's a safe place to unpack whatever they need to. All of these tips are here to help support the first responders in your life, and they're provided by BC Emergency Health Services. And more tips can be found on their website. So go and have a check. Check it out. We wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for the first responders, and we all need to take a second to step back and find some gratitude for them and find some support because they need that. So, this now wraps up another episode of A Sound Constitution with the VIU nursing students. As a reminder, this information does not replace that of your healthcare provider. So if you have any questions, make sure you check in with them every once in a while. We're all here to support you. Again, thank you all for listening and tuning in to CHLY 101.7 FM radio. Remember to be kind, calm, and stay safe, everyone. See you next week.